Apple recently had its first big keynote for the year, announcing some new products. The new iPhone SE and the iPad Air, we can sort of skip past those because perfectly good for what they are and the place that they have in the lineup. The iPhone SE, I feel, I think that hits a particular market. Not so sure about the iPad Air, to be honest, because as we said in our product review thing a month ago or so, you either get the least expensive one at the bottom or just get the one at the top. Don't bother in the middle, but it depends. Maybe you like one of the new colors or something that it comes in. But the thing that really kind of stood out to me was the Mac Studio, because this is like the first effectively new product, I guess, that they've come out with. Now, you could argue, it's just a big Mac Mini, supercharged Mac Mini, but I think, like, I look at this and I think a lot of the commentary's borne this out, is like it's got that much power in it and that much functionality, that many ports, versatility with being able to plug into whatever monitors you want or multiple monitors, etc., that you have to wonder what you would get a Mac Pro for at this point if you're inclined to use one of those products. I mean, on the one hand, I was really impressed by it because although it's got a high price tag, if you remember, like, just take the ports, for instance. They're all high-speed, high-end ports. If you were to try and get a dock that had all of those built in to the same specifications, you'd probably be looking at $400 or $500 to plug that in. So you immediately should really just take that off the price of the Mac Studio, just to get a proper comparison as to how much this thing costs. But it does make me wonder, because I'm obviously looking at what's my lineup, what am I going to use, and this kind of complicates it, and I think goes to what you were saying, because this is actually a reasonably priced entry point for the higher end M1 Max chip, because previously you only could get it in the last MacBook Pro that they released, and you had to spend in Australian dollars, I think, well over $4,500 to get that chip, and this you can get it for $3,000. Now, granted, you have to plug in a monitor and all that stuff, but what do you get? And I don't think this is going to end. I have a feeling they're going to introduce another one of these that's in between the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio, which is going to further, that'll probably be based on the M1 Pro, and then you've got another option to pick. But do you pick this, or do you pick the high-end MacBook Pros to get your work done, or and then you've got all the other iPads and everything that you can use for a lot of tasks as well. And I think it goes to your point about the diversification of their product line, that makes it hard to pick what to get. And confoundingly, they did tease at the end of this announcement that a Mac Pro was coming still, and it's like, well, what possibly could it have that would justify it being better than what this is, other than maybe the ability to plug in your own cards or something, like the traditional Mac Pros have had?
Yeah, look, I'm completely lost in this product range at the moment. So with the MacBook Pro I have, with the M1 chip, I can only connect to one monitor at a time. If I'd gone out and got the Max, I think that has a capacity for multiple monitors. So, but there doesn't seem to be. But if you go out and get a Mac Mini, that can hook up to multiple monitors. I don't understand why all these inconsistencies exist in the range. I think you make a great point. Effectively, your Mac Studio is a dock as well as its own, its own computing entity in this post-PC world. So it's an amazing piece. I mean, I think it replaces effectively the iMac. But we don't know what the plans for the iMac are, and maybe they'll just, let the iMac be as it is and transition this way. Maybe Apple doesn't really want to sell monitors of any kind anymore, except the really high-end ones. It's impossible to tell, and I think, I'm not hugely into Apple and Mac anymore, or anticipating what they might do, but I certainly feel lost with their products. And I feel lost now that I see these sorts of products with this sort of functionality, and I've got an iPhone 13 with the wrong port in it.
Absolutely. But just to confuse it even further, they actually did come back further into this where we're supplying displays again with because alongside the Mac Studio they announced a studio display that is effectively the same screen as the 27-inch iMac, just the screen, and it's got a webcam in it and speakers and more ports in it and all that sort of thing, which is meant to complement the Mac Studio. And obviously you can plug in any Mac into it if you want, and it's designed to be the affordable display that the Pro XDR that they released wasn't. And again, you sit there and you think a 27-inch display, you get this Mac Studio, or you could buy a Mac Mini or something, and then all of a sudden you don't need a 27-inch iMac anymore. And it may be that maybe it's this whole thing about reversing course from the 2016 to 19 period where like the Pro kind of got demoted in the lineup, and that's where you started to get Macs without proper ports on them and all that sort of stuff. And this is just a massive course correction away from that because there was such a backlash from the Pro community. Why aren't you giving us the Macs that we knew and loved in the past? And now they're almost going like full throttle in the other direction. And that's not to say there aren't achievements in there. I mean, the M1 Ultra chip, which is fusing two M1 Max chips together through that interconnector thing, so that it looks like it's one chip, like brilliant engineering, and and it's making what Intel's doing to be. I mean, I'm sure Intel will catch up at some point, but they haven't got the fact that it's running on such low power requirements and all that sort of thing is extremely impressive. But again, it's just like, well, what do you get out of all of this? What do you choose? Like I'm still wanting to play out the rest of the year to see how the rest of the lineup looks, and then maybe try and figure it out. But I'm starting to wonder, just get one of the MacBooks and that's it, and don't even bother.
Yeah, I know. I keep on raving about my MacBook. It's quite obviously one of the original generation, and if I'd known what was coming, maybe I've held out. But I'm not in the slightest bit concerned. And I think, as I've said before, my MacBook and a monitor is pretty much all you need. But I think we are seeing a big change. I don't know if any of these changes now are also driven by the supply chain issues we've seen over the last 2 years, plus Apple moving away from Intel to their own chipsets. But we'll see where this goes. But it always makes me nervous when I can't decipher what I should be buying in an Apple catalogue.
Absolutely. And I guess just one final point, because you just touched on it then, just pulling it back to that new iPad Air that got released or got announced in March, that comes with an M1 chip now. Yeah. And I guess the reaction was, why is that one getting an M1? But again, it's probably what you were saying, it's the supply chain thing. They've probably got, they probably went all in on M1 production, and they've probably got heaps of them, lying around. They need the A15 chip, which is probably what should have gone into the iPad Air if it was following the pattern from the previous generations, but they need the A15 chip for the iPhones, so they don't want to shortchange the iPhone, which is their big money maker. So they just said, oh, well, we'll just chuck M1s into the iPad Air now. And it leads to confusion because then, obviously there was another thing about, well, which do you buy the iPad Air or do you buy the iPad Pro 11-inch?
Or do you get a MacBook Air?
Yeah. And again, it's like, well, it's almost like you've got to be you really got to target and specifically look at what features are on that device to see if it exactly matches what you need, because there's just so much overlap with all this sort of stuff.
And this is my point, I guess, is that what I'm finding is that I can't find the perfect use case in any one Mac.
Yeah.
Anymore, which used to be Mac's selling point. That's the Mac that does everything I need. Now it's like, well, I'm going to have to go and buy a dongle,
Yeah, I know it's not good, but anyway, I mean, maybe this is just a feature of a company that's become, one of the largest tech companies in the world, whereas in the past they being smaller might have led to that simplicity. Who knows?
Well, and look, and to be fair as well, there's no question at the moment they are making the best products. So let's hope they just tighten their brief and start stopping the confusion that I'm feeling.
Oh, who knows? Maybe the 4 quadrants might come back. Who knows?